Hello everyone, my name is Ragnar Raquette, and I am here with another guide. I know it's been a little while. This one is for Starcraft 2, Legacy of the Void. We're going to talk about all of the common settings for this game, some of them both inside and out of, that are very important to know as a new player, and also some things just about like controlling your units in production, navigating through the game that I thought would have been very helpful to have somewhere as a new player. A lot of these things exist in other resources, but there's not like one good central one. So I felt like it would be nice to have a quick and dirty resource to point everybody to. Hopefully, you guys find this helpful. The first thing that I want to talk about really quickly is actually not in StarCraft itself, it's the repeat rate of the keyboard. So I'm going to flip over here. And this is my keyboard properties and Windows settings. You'll notice that I have my repeat rate set all the way up as fast as it'll go. I don't have the delay on as short as it will get. That's the duration from when you press the key to when it starts actually like repeating. The reason for that is just because I also type with this keyboard and use it for other stuff, so I think this is a fine compromise. There are ways to even speed up your repeat rate faster than this with third-party tools. That's very common. A lot of pro players will do that, but for like casual players, I don't think this matters. The reason why this is important is because specifically for Zerg, it's very nice to quickly spin all your larvae. So you can like select all your larvae and hold down the Z key, and you can make all of it into Zerglings almost instantly. When you see pros spike up to like thousands of APM or whatever, that's really what they're doing. The next thing that I want to talk about is, I guess I'm not going to show it, but mouse acceleration should be off. I'm not going to go through all the menus for that. I think that's a fairly common game setting that most people know about. It's bad because it just tends to throw off your mouse accuracy a little bit. Speaking of, I broke my mouse last night. I am on a backup crappy Logitech mouse, so if I make any dumb mistakes, I'm blaming it on that, not my own ineptitude. We're going to go through the in-game settings really quickly here. Graphics and sound, these are pretty much whatever works for you. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there, whatever you like. There are some things that a lot of pros will swear by, the lower graphics. That was more of a thing in the past. It's not so much anymore. The one thing that's really cool on this is there's actually, you can pick your background when you start in. I have mine set to space clouds. It doesn't really matter. I just don't do like random because some of them are actually kind of really freaking annoying. Voice chat is disabled. I don't care. If I was going to play team games and I wanted to talk to somebody, I'd use Discord. Mouse and keyboard, I have the mouse sensitivity in game disabled. I do that through Windows settings and as well as any manufacturer software like Corsair or whatever. Can find the mouse cursor. This is set on smart, so I play in Windows full screen because I stream and I have two monitors. This lets me, if I was in a menu or whatever, I can just pop my mouse over to my other monitor without having to tab out. It's whatever. I have now enable mouse scroll enabled. I have this set to 60% and 100% for drag speed. Those are the two important ones. I'm going to get back to those in a second. I'm just going to mention them and disable Windows key. Pretty self-explanatory, I feel like. Gameplay settings, these are the ones that actually matter. Game speed, this only actually matters for like custom games. You can't actually do anything about this. By default, the game's always on faster. Show alerts will set little pop-up boxes on the left-hand side of your screen here to let you know when things like injects or upgrades have finished. Some people find it annoying, some people find it helpful, some people don't even notice them at all, so that's kind of whatever. Display the build grid is very important. This lets you see where your buildings are going to be placed on nice, neat little squares so you can wall off your bases easily and look for gaps in your wall. Always show the worker status. This will show the worker saturation above your bases, lets you know if your economy is borked. Enable simple command card. This is enabled by default. You actually want to disable it. The simple command card just says like you can press A and left click to attack move, and it's not the biggest of deals, but turning it off lets you see the full thing, so you can see stuff like your home position and stop command and all that kind of stuff. Show current order indicator. This is also not really an important one. It just shows where your stuff's going on the map and in the replay. Select all larvae. Same deal. You want to pick up all your larvae at once and make stuff really quickly. Enable enemy unit selection. This is another one that I think is off by default. That's very important to turn on because this lets you do things like click on your enemy spellcaster unit to see how much energy it has, or click on their marine to see the upgrades. It's nice to see if they have 1-1 or 2-2. That actually makes a big difference in knowing what fights you can take as you gain more knowledge as a player. Display experience points. This is one that looks really silly, but it's actually quite important to turn on. If you take a very close fight and you kill their unit, if your units trade with their units and you both die, having this on will let you see the experience points flash up the screen in the fog of war if it's just out of whatever your vision would be. So this actually lets you know if you killed something. Enable window restore is kind of whatever. It's just if you're tabbing out a lot, it doesn't really matter too much. Show unit life bars. I have this set on damage because I do commentary. I think it's a better viewer experience. There's a really strong argument to be made as a player, though, for having it on always. The reason for that being enemy spellcaster units, if they are at full health and full shields for Protoss and full energy, their bars won't show up, and it's a little bit harder to select them out of the center of the army for things like EMP or what have you. Control groups, I have mine set to normal. You can make them unclickable or hidden if you don't like seeing them, or if you click on them by mistake and add things to them. I don't think that matters. I think the solution to that is just have better mouse accuracy, but again, if that's the thing you want, it's there. Show flyer helper, I have this always on. What that does is it draws a little line underneath flying units to the ground where they quote-unquote technically are in the game, and lets you target things like Ravager Biles or spells. If you've ever tried to ravage a Ravager Bile down a Liberator that's been sieged up and you've missed, turn on your flyer helper. Makes it much easier. You can also set your in-game colors by default. They're always red and blue. I play on purple. You have to click a button down here by your mini-map to toggle this on and off. There's like a team button color or something. So if it doesn't work right away, that's why. You can also change the intensity. Nothing really fancy here. As for social, you have a list of blocked people that you can no longer interact with you if they're being obnoxious. You can also turn on or off invites to groups, which is another way sometimes people will troll you. Like, this game is not that bad. I don't want to give you guys the wrong impression, but it's nice to know it's there. You can also turn off only friends, letting you send messages outside of the game. You can also not auto-join default Blizzard channels, because sometimes they get a little sketchy. The other thing that's really worth noting is you can press F11 by default, and it will pop up a message log in the game. And if you need to block someone in the middle of a ladder game, that's how you do it. So F11. I'm not going to do it because this is a solo game that I'm going to show you some stuff in a minute here, but other than that. Observer and replay interface. I use the WCS 3.0 because, again, I do commentary and I'll cover games sometimes. This makes for a cleaner viewer experience, but if you're just trying to improve and want to navigate around timestamps in your replay to look for stuff, default's probably better for you. I'm going to talk about hotkeys later after we talk about some stuff that more utilizes hotkeys, so we're going to come back to that. Alright, so right now I am in a thing called Legacy for the Void Unit Tester. This is a custom map in the arcade, and what this does is lets me just throw up really quick little experiments to show you. I'm not going to really talk about this specifically. So the first thing I want to talk about is actually using the camera in Starcraft. The first thing that you're probably like, right now I know how to move the camera, I just put the mouse around the edges of the screen. And some MOBA players might actually already know why this is bad, but if you're moving your mouse to the edge of your screen, and you need to select an ability or something, you need to move your mouse back to the center of the screen, and that's time. What you can do is you can hold down your center mouse button, your mouse wheel, and you can actually pan your camera around like this, and it doesn't move your mouse relative to your camera to do that. There's also a way to save camera locations, like you can make a control groups for units and bounce to them. And also go around and make control groups for your unit, or for your camera locations, excuse me. So by default, this is control, it's either F4 or F5 on down the row. I've changed mine. So I'm gonna go Shift F1, Shift F2, Shift F3, Shift F4. And if you imagine these little pillars as like my bases that I wanted to hop around and inject really quickly, I can just go F1, F2, F3, F4. Pop, 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 pop around, inject all my bases. Cool, neat, fun. So the next thing I want to talk about really quickly is rallying units, which is another thing that seems a little, I don't know. Why are we talking about this? So by default, if you make stuff, it'll just pop out underneath their axe right there. You can also make a rally point, and it'll pop out and go to that rally point. Woo, whoop-de-doo. Not exciting. So we're going to tuck those back in the corner. I'll set this tank to patrol really quickly. And you can also do stuff like rally to units, and if the units are moving, when they pop out, they'll follow this buddy around. So this is a very easy way to set up parade pushes around anchor units, Like, this is mostly for Terran, but it's also important for Protoss and Zerg. So, like, if your tank dies, your push is probably over. This is a quick and easy, dirty way to reinforce your push, or if you're playing Protoss and you're playing Stargate and you have a bunch of Phoenixes, you can rally your Stargates to one of the Phoenixes. All the rest of your Phoenixes will join up with the main group wherever they are on the map, because it's a very active unit. For Zerg, there is an equivalent thing here, and I'm going to actually turn off my instant production so you can see it a little bit better here. So we're going to go to options, instant production. I'm going to pick all my larvae, and I'm going to make some Zerglings here. And I have a bunch of eggs selected right now. I'm going to hit Shift 3 to add them to my control group, or Control 3, I guess, by default. And now I have 3 eggs in this control group. You can control group eggs. You can give them rally points that are separate from your main hatchery rally. And they will run out here when they're born. This will actually be 6 Zerglings in this group. Yeah, look at that. Wow, 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 wow. So then move around there. And you can also add some more in here. So now the rest of these eggs will rally around wherever I move the rest of the army. Similar idea. I also want to mention really quickly, if you are a newer player, or I guess not a newer player, an older player returning to Legacy of the Void, previously, you would have to wait for your inject on your hatcheries to finish before you could start a new one. As of several years ago now, but new for many older players, you can actually queue up your injects, so you can go inject, 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 inject. I can actually just do a ton here even. I can hold down shift and click this a bunch. My queens will spend all their energy. Wow, look at them go. And when this finishes, the next inject will start up. So you shouldn't need to do this. You should be spending your inject energies as soon as it's available, but if you mess up and you make a mistake, this is a good way to spend your inject energy back down. This is kind of a building bad habits thing for a similar reason. Like, if you remember old Day 9 dailies, you don't want to queue up your Marines on here because this is spending extra money, so you have your 50 spent here and you have 200 more minerals spent in these Marines that are just doing nothing. Similar kind of logic there. It's actually not bad. I want to mention this because this is a thing that gets a little misinterpreted though, of having another unit right behind it in the queue as before this finishes. That's fine. You're not Flash. You're not going to be able to instantly jump back to your barracks and start another Marine as soon as the first one finishes. So it's cool to do one as a way to minimize your downtime there. That's totally fine. It's a common thing I see misinterpreted. Let's see. I also want to talk about control group stealing really quickly. So I'm going to pop back into my hotkeys. Options, hotkeys, global. You'll see in my control groups, I've actually unbound the default create group. Those don't exist for me. I'm instead have moved that to this further down option that says create control group 1 and take away units. And I use that for all of my control groups. So normally that's alt 1, I think. But so all this does is, see, I have my 10 Zerglings in control group 3. If I take like 4 of them, it'll remove them from this control group 3. Now I have a separate group. This is really nice for like splitting off run bys or separating out different groups of units. So like if I go, oh, let's make some Banelings. And then I can move my Zerglings around without the Banes. I didn't mean to do that. So it's really nice for little things like that. So the next thing I want to talk about here is, I'm going to make a bunch more Zerglings actually. So I have a ton. You guys can come up here because we're not going to need you. You're going to get in the way. We'll bring out my Widow Mines here. Burrow them. The next thing I want to talk about is shift deselecting units. So you can actually click on units. And with shift held down, you can click on them. And you will either add them back to the group if they're not already in there, whatever you have selected, or remove them from it. You can also do that on the wireframe down here, which is pretty nice. The reason that it's really nice is you can do things like click over here where the Widow Mines are, shift out a bunch of Zerglings, and they're going to run out here and they're going to set off these Widow Mines. Easy peasy. And now we can move in here with the rest of the army. Clean that up. While they are KO'd. Oh, I don't have detection. I guess they actually count as having an armory on this mode. Never mind. Imagine I killed those. So the last thing I want to talk about really quickly before I just talk into hotkeys properly is a thing called rapid fire that you might see mentioned a lot. A lot of people really aren't quite clear on what this is. All it is is binding a button that casts a spell to the same thing that targets the spell. So normally I would press Z and I would left click and my Ravager would cast a Bile. Cool, easy, intuitive. So what I've also done is that left click to cast the spell, I've also said that can be Z. So I can hold down Z here and I can go wave my mouse around and my Ravagers will all cast their Biles without having to click a bunch. You can do the same thing with any spell in the game, even making buildings if you want. It's a common thing pro Zergs will do is they'll make their hatchery key rapid fire. So you can say, okay, mine is Q, for example. I can hold down Q and my hatchery will build wherever my mouse is. It's really nice to get around that first pro block of the game in ZVP. If you need a split second, that can make all the difference. I will show you guys this really quickly too. I didn't mean to show that. So here are my hotkeys, actually as they are in a text file. These are in your documents in your Starcraft folder somewhere. You're going to have to poke around a little bit to find these usually. But there's an option that says target choose. You can see it's left mouse button ZXC. Those are all 4 of my rapid fire keys at the moment. By default, the interface in the game here only will let you use unit management. Only let you use 2 options, and if you click this, it would actually erase them for me. So I'm going to click something else. But yeah, you see, I can add an alternate button. You can have as many as you want if you do it through the text file. So that's why I'm pointing it out. So the last thing I want to mention really quickly is just hotkeys overall. The takeaway here for me is that I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this. I think it's whatever works best for you and whatever you feel most comfortable with. Standard is obviously the one the game will start you out with. This is what most people are familiar with. There's not a whole ton to say about it. Some people will make minor edits to things they find inconvenience. There's not a ton that come up off the top of my head. Grid is another super common one. It lays them out on a nice neat grid shape on the left half of your keyboard. I basically use this, but I built my own custom version to change things like the camera hotkeys and a few important things like in grid, morph banelings and manually detonate banelings are on the same button. And I don't think I need to tell you how easy it is to get in trouble when you keep manually detonating your banes on accident, when you're trying to make more. I can post my hotkeys if you like later. It's basically just grid, but again, I did all my own things. I added a move to it, changed the camera hotkeys, a few minor tweaks. If you want them, you can ask, and I'm more than happy to send them to you. Another super common hotkey layout that you might see talked about sometimes is called the core. It doesn't show here easily, but basically, if you imagine when you're typing normally, your home keys, your right-hand home keys, JKL semicolon. For the core, the right-handed version, that's where you would place your left hand on that right side of the keyboard, which is a little counterintuitive. All of your buttons are very close to each other, though, and they're very thoughtfully mapped out to make very movement economic decisions. Some people love this, some people hate it. I don't personally care for it. I've been playing long enough that I find it's very difficult to learn an entirely new set of hotkeys like this. And especially as a new player, the best time to experiment with stuff is right then, because then you don't have muscle memory to fight against. So this might be something you want to consider. You can just Google the core, and it takes a little bit of finagling to go through the Team Liquid forums and find the file and set it up, but it's not too terrible. Just copy paste the text file basically. I think that is all I have for you guys. If you have questions or anything, oops, that's not what I wanted to pop into that. I just wanted to say thank you. If you have questions, drop them below. I don't know how to end a video. I'm a very awkward person. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this, twitch.tv/RagnarRocket. I try to stream most days. I hate schedules, so no promises. Just drop a follow. You'll get the notifications. You know how the internet works. It's 2021. Jeez. Thank you guys again. Goodbye.